Trump recently stated that the biggest bull run is coming and that we need to get ready for it right away. This video, I want to talk about the events of the past 24 hours. That will have a significant impact on traditional finance as well as cryptocurrency. Now let's explore the current state of the cryptocurrency market. I'll refresh. I am aware that we recently made a little Bitcoin sale. In a moment, I will discuss the price chart. XRP was breaking out earlier today, but first, we do see a lot of old coins up considerably. I did manage to hit roughly $2.63. Due to the significant resistance zone up there, which I will also discuss in this video, we are currently selling down a little bit. However, trading volume has significantly increased for many antique coins. Additionally, we were able to observe the volume of Bitcoin trading over the previous 24 hours. You know, Ethereum has more than $26.6 billion and nearly $55 billion. At roughly $7.8 billion, XRP is the next one after that. Now the 30-day volume is the primary item that I'm also examining. As we can see, Bitcoin is worth more than $1.6 trillion. Ethereum has also surpassed $1 trillion. Additionally, $166 billion was linked to XRP outside of that. Thus, there is a lot of trade activity in this area at the moment. Additionally, whale activity is reaching all-time highs for most of the older coins, including Bitcoin. The total value of the cryptocurrency market is $3.4 trillion. You know, things really started to blow up yesterday. However, as you can see, things have been going haywire since about the beginning of May. And the reason for this is, of course, that Bitcoin began to climb from the low to mid-90,000 zone to where it is currently on this chart, which is approximately 103,000. Once more, I will be discussing both Bitcoin and XRP in this video. However, let's take a moment to discuss the true nature of this situation. The link between Bitcoin and M2 is so astounding that it would be the most bizarre chart in all of finance if we actually looked over here. In fact, the M2 supply and Bitcoin are visible here. As you can see, Bitcoin has been tracking the M2 supply during this entire change. Although there may be occasional minor declines, I do think that Bitcoin will reach $150,000 in the long run. I continue to think that will be the aim. If, things do get insane, it might actually happen before the end of the summer. However, my general hypothesis is that we peak sometime in the fall to winter season, which is somewhat comparable to 2017 and 2018, or technically 2021, as we did peak in November of that year. Apart from that, however, Bitcoin dominance is correct because both Bitcoin and its dominance have been evolving. The dominance of Bitcoin has been declining. It currently stands at roughly 62.5%. At around 62.24%, it did hit early. This comes after a pleasant surge that reached almost 65%. Since we have had these little sell-offs in the past, I am keeping an eye out for a much more substantial bearish candle here. Here, for instance, we also have April and May of 2024. Up here, we're witnessing a very similar price movement. Additionally, we go back to December 2023, and continue into January 2024. There have been some minor sell-offs. I'm keeping an eye on this to see if it's the actual start of the season or if it's just a small sell-off before a much bigger expansion. We don't have much time left if it is. The situation is going to become extremely unstable, and we will witness sharp fluctuations in all altcoins. However, I've also been seeing how the markets are responding to the current news. I'm going to discuss the latest news. I'll discuss the announcement now. You guys must already be aware of it by now. But what if we do gaze to the future? We could literally see that from unusual whales this morning while I was viewing stock futures. The future is incredibly green. The S&P 500 was up 3% and the Nasdaq was up 4%. When the stock market opened, the Dow was up more than 900 points. The S&P was up over 133 and the Nasdaq was up over 500 and over 70, if we were to go over here to CNN Business. Folks, this is among the most optimistic stock openings in a long time. However, I've also been pointing people that equities were about to soar. For that reason, even if we return to the web page here, let me quickly return to it. And let me to quickly show you the S&P 500 chart that I previously provided with you all. This is on a macro 3-week chart. If we look at it in its entirety, we might see a little different perspective here if I go to the daily or whatever. We really began to push past the highs, you know. As a matter of fact, this chart has already shown a confirmed higher high since March, which is a huge indication. We're going to have a very difficult time getting past this red zone, I said. And it's great to see that we opened above it today. In fact, the S&P 500 is looking fantastic right now, burst past the midline, you know. And you can see how bullish the S&P 500 is if we really examine this over a period of 3 days. We overcame the midpoint. This red zone is almost over now. To verify this, we still need a little more time. It will be a highly important week to keep a close eye on markets. However, the all-time highs represent the next level of intrigue. On the S&P, that would put us at over 6,000. Crypto could benefit greatly from this. Gold too. Gold has been declining in value, and I do believe that the future of gold will be somewhat dull. In fact, I believe that this is our general perspective on gold, or something like. Incredibly dull. This will get us to 2026. Additionally, everyone will be interested in cryptocurrency during that period, which is precisely why I believe Bitcoin began to rise in the first place. If you look at April 21st, you can see when gold began to lose its appeal. We'll take a look at this chart from when Bitcoin first started to really take off. Let's take a moment to reflect on the month. It is April 21st back here. This enormous upward-pointing candle is here. During that period, the obvious shift from gold to cryptocurrency was evident. And now that Bitcoin is beginning to rise, gold is basically continuing to go sideways. It's great to see this. However, I also created a video. I mentioned this piece I wrote on X yesterday, in which I discussed how the China agreement is the biggest catalyst we face, correct? This trade agreement with China, along with the Fed's rate cut, of course. And I predicted that this would act as a tremendous impetus for a widespread rally. And you know what we got? We got a major deal yesterday. The United States gave us a huge deal with China. I said, the deal is done, just like I said yesterday. Now get ready for a huge shift in both stocks and cryptocurrency. Now is actually the time for the bull run to start. If we take a closer look, we see that the United States is in Geneva when it announces a deal with China. We have an imminent release date of the 11th. This comes from Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Treasury. I'm pleased to say that in the crucial trade negotiations, the United States and China achieved significant progress. First of all, I would want to express my gratitude to the Swiss authorities, who are our kind hosts and have provided us with this fantastic facility, which I believe has contributed to the high level of productivity we have witnessed. I can tell you that the discussions were fruitful, but we will provide further information tomorrow. We had the Vice Premier, 2 Vice Ministers who played a crucial role, Ambassador Jameson and myself. I also spoke with President Trump last night, and Ambassador Jameson is completely aware of the situation, so tomorrow morning there will be a thorough briefing. Now well, as we consider this, we examine today's changes. One of the major announcements was that the U.S. reduced tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30% for a period of 90 days. For 90 days, China also reduces service in the U.S. from 125% to 10%. It's great to see that we essentially have a 90-day pause on this.